morning, everybody. So I'll start off by saying my name is Alex Fuentes, along with my colleague Clayton Kochmeyer. We are both system support engineers here at ESC, and today we're going to be presenting common ProcessNow failures. So go ahead and get started. So before we get started on resolving any issues, we need to start from the bottom and ask, what is this thing called ProcessNow? So about ProcessNow is that it only exists central only, which is only on your StackVision server. Has nothing to do with your data logger. It won't alter any values on your data logger. So all of your raw values are going to be completely untouched by ProcessNow. The next thing is that the foundation of ProcessNow is user defined, and this means that this isn't something that's preset that we just go in, hit a button, and your configuration is there. This is always set up by an engineer, and it's going to be based off of your specific reporting requirements for Part 75, Part 60, and your state requirements. So no site is going to be the same from one another. Everything is going to be completely different. So this is the full lineup of tasks that could be used in any of your ProcessNow sequences. Some of the common tasks that are used are your min to hour, mathpack, hour roll average, which will be responsible for calculating your multi-hour averages, such as your 3-hour rolling average, your day roll average, that would be used for calculating your daily average, and month roll average for your monthly. We've added quite a bit of task over the past few years to accommodate for refineries, new regulatory requirements, and user requests. So ProcessNow plus failure is a recipe for disaster. The reason I say this is that it can cause application alarms. Data can be missing due to ProcessNow not calculating central only parameters. Or you could be missing data that depend on you entering your field test. The data could possibly not be accurate due to rolling average or totals not being up to date, and having limited alarm functionality could also prevent you from receiving exceedance alarms on your extended averages. So how does ProcessNow run? So there are two ways that ProcessNow can be run. The first is going to be manually, where in StackVision you go to Tools and then ProcessNow and manually pick the sequence you want to run for any needed time frame. For reprocessing data, we would typically select your daily ProcessNow and use the override ending date and set the date for only the current quarter to the previous day ending at 2359. So for example, today we put the ending date being 5/24/2021 at 2359. Then we have running your ProcessNow via scheduled task. This would be set up in your task schedule wizard in StackVision. Your daily and hourly ProcessNow would be set up using this method to be scheduled to run on the daily or hourly interval automatically. Usually this is configured by your engineer, and you wouldn't have had to do this at your initial setup. So setting up your ProcessNow task, you'll be able to select how often you want to run the task and what start time you want to run it at. Previously, we would have to separate the start time by increment of minutes to make sure they don't interfere with each other. Now, if selected, we have the option to run a task asynchronously. So we won't have to stagger any task or have to worry about tasks running over each other, causing additional issues. So ProcessNow, is it passing? Is it failing? How do I know if something's gone wrong? So logging into StackVision on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a satellite dish, which will be used to show you the status of your data loggers. If you've lost communications with one logger or multiple, you'll get a exclamation point. And right next to that, we have your ProcessNow gear. If there is an X on this gear, you know that your ProcessNow has failed and you need to start investigating or get in contact with support. Application alarms. The first thing, this is the first thing that you would experience when your ProcessNow fails in the application alarms. This would usually start with an alarm pop-up as pictured with the audible beep that I'm sure many of you have heard. If your operators have an active alarm screen, it'll display a message on that screen, and it would also show up in your alarm history report if you get these sent to you every morning or you check on these periodically. This is your ProcessNow report, ProcessNow history report. This can be found in your reports tab in StackVision. Starting at the top, you're able to select any specific date and time. You're also able to select what individual or specific task you want to see on this report. The two places that you're always going to be looking on this report is all the way on the left where you see the name of the ProcessNow sequence, and all the way on the right where it'll show you the status of your ProcessNow. From what you see here, every ProcessNow has passed, and this is typically what you would always want to see. However, that's not always the case. This is exactly what you don't want to see. We see here that Unit 1 daily ProcessNow has been failing. You can tell that it's been failing by the red error status. To start your investigation, you can hit the plus arrow next to the sequence name. That'll show you which task the ProcessNow failed on. Aside from this showing you which task failed, under the task status column of the dropdown, the report will show you what the exit code was of this specific task that failed and what the configured error threshold is. So here we read the process exit value exceeds the configured limit, and the exit value is 90 with the configured threshold being 80. So this is why the task aborted, but it'll also give additional information. As you can see on the example, it says program hit a missing hour and couldn't continue processing the parameter. So there's your big hint. And the next thing would be on your investigation. So take a big note on this. The red error status on this report is actually a link that you can click on for additional information. And it'll give you additional information on why the sequence actually failed. We'll go over this in a few slides. So your configured error threshold are located in the Stack Studio. The error threshold editor defines the lowest level of severity for a specific ProcessNow task to report a failure. The threshold codes represent the error situations organized by increasingly more severe problems. Therefore, the higher the code goes, the higher codes will also be reported as failures. So this means for example, UDR is configured with a threshold of 80. If your exit value ends up being 100, 126, 127, UDR will also be reported as a failure. So anything over 80. These error thresholds are configurable, but it's highly suggested that you don't touch them. As we talked about 2 slides ago, when you click on the error link, you'll be taken to this screen. So big note, that we ask of you is if you want to quit right here and you don't have time to troubleshoot, it's highly suggested that you take a screenshot of this page and send it over to us when we create your case. This is usually always a big help and can speed up the process of your case being resolved. So I'll put that out there. Troubleshooting your own will always be the fastest, but this page at first can be a bit intimidating. Some of you may not even bother as soon as you see the C colon. But if you take a deep breath and read past that, you'll see the page gives quite a bit of information, such as the missing operational data, and it'll give you the parameter name, dates, and times. So reading past it, this C colon, you'll see that the UDR record unprocessed or complete because of a missing, out of control, invalid data flag on the hourly record for the source, unit 1, the parameter, MATS, time online, and the date and hour. Processing for this time online was discontinued after this date. Parameters, gas, time online, fuel fact, OPAC, time online. Load will not be processed for the site, therefore you may also want to verify the data is correct. So quite a bit of information there. So I've personally received quite a bit of calls, so I'm going to assume that there's some sort of confusion on this report. So this report displays your historical records of any selected ProcessNow task that was run in chronological order. So the sequences that you see at the top were run earlier than the sequences that you see on the bottom. Once a ProcessNow sequence has failed, it'll stay on this report showing as failed and at the time that it was run. There's no changing that can be done to this report, but once you have ironed out any issues and rerun your ProcessNow, you should see an OK as your status, and you should be good to go from there. That is why we always want to base the status of your ProcessNow off of the last run, which is usually always at the bottom. Another problem is usually if your IT takes care of your server migrations, and you go and check this ProcessNow history report and it's completely empty. This may be due to your IT not exporting from your old StackVision server and importing your scheduled task to the brand new server. So once they have that corrected and you run your first ProcessNow task on the new server, you'll see that the status was changed to started. That just means that that ProcessNow task is being run. Another issue that doesn't happen so often, but when it does, it causes a bit of havoc, is your ProcessNow being hung. So you'll know this if your ProcessNow, if first of all, if your data is not coming in and you notice that ProcessNow has been running for an hour, 4 hours, or however long, this would usually require us to get logged in if you don't feel comfortable using the task manager and manually ending the task that it is stuck on. So what troubleshooting tools are available? The first and fastest one is going to be your StackVision help, which is in StackVision. On the top right-hand corner, it'll be a blue question mark. You can always get logged on to the community's website where we have a knowledge article base, which we typically use. So all that information is available to you. Or you can, backtracking. Okay, no. So you can also get in contact with us at ESC support, and you can get in contact with us by the number listed. You can contact us by email, or you can get logged into the community where we can get a live chat started and resolve issues as so. So now we're going to move to the common errors and fixes with Clayton, and he'll be taking over for him.
All right, thank you, Alex. Good explanation of how the ProcessNow history report works and kind of troubleshooting. What I'm going to go over here is more common errors we see, what we get a lot of support cases about. That way, everybody here kind of has a general idea of where to go, where to look to help find solutions and everything. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, Alex. All right, one of the most common calls we get in support is due to missing data on extended values, such as 3-hour intervals, 1 day, 1 month, 12 month. We need to remember that the longer extended intervals are all central only parameters, which requires ProcessNow to calculate all of these. So we just want to remind everybody, if you're not seeing anything in your extended values, first thing I would always check is to make sure that your ProcessNow sequence is completing successfully. And then if you're still having issues from there, you can always reach out to support, and we can always take a look at everything and get everything fixed from there. But we always want to make sure that our ProcessNow sequences are completing successfully. All right, next slide. Okay, another thing we see a lot is, or one thing we want to remind everybody is that our ProcessNow sequences are run from top to bottom, meaning it needs to complete task 1 before moving on to task 2. And as you see in the report on the right, we have failed on task 3, and we have not continued on any farther from that. So one thing that this could prevent, it could prevent math calculations from our extended intervals, accumulations, our averages, substitutions. It could stop our condition managers from alarming us that, hey, we're in exceedance. So we just always want to, take a look here, find exactly what task we're failing on, and then we'll take care of that issue. And then we always want to rerun ProcessNow and make sure it completes, or we move on to the next error until we get it completing successfully. All right, so now we're going to go through a couple common errors. First one we want to go through is for our fuel analysis records, or apply FS as we call it. What we're showing you here is kind of what it would look like. You have your process history report on your left. You can see it failed on the fuel analysis on task 3. Again, if you hit that red error link button, this is what it will show you on the right. These are just examples of diving in, kind of seeing, and it kind of explains here with the C colons, kind of what's going on, kind of where to look. And usually, next slide, please, Alex. So usually what I do here is I go into our customer knowledge base and I search for apply FS ProcessNow error. And you can usually find a common knowledge article that has a quick and easy fix for these. Most of the time we see this common error after server migrations. Usually it's the .gas or .oil files are missing, and they just haven't been created yet. So if we go into our knowledge base, we search for apply FS ProcessNow error. We'll find this is article 1171 here on the right. It says, hey, this is what we're seeing in our task, where it says task details show. This is the ProcessNow error we are seeing in the red error link button. Here's how you resolve it. And usually this one is a quick, you just go into your fuel systems, you make a change such as placing a check mark on a lock column and then removing it. And then we want to save that and then rerun our ProcessNow and check our ProcessNow history to make sure that has completed successfully. So that's kind of how you fix the apply FS. Another common one we see here is the UDR, or stack daily record utility has failed. And if this is again showing you what you'll see on your ProcessNow history report, as well as when you click the red error link button. This one shows you, hey, we're seeing either a missing, out of control, or invalid data flag on, and then as Alex explained before, it's got the source, the parameter, the date, and the hour. So kind of troubleshooting from here, first thing we would do is go to Data Lab, and we would look up that parameter, that date, that hour, that unit, and we see here in our Data Lab that we have a blank value. Usually this is caused either by a communication blip, and usually an easy fix for that is to just back pull the data from the controller tools tab on in StackVision. You can just back pull your data. It says, hey, logger, I'm missing these data, can you send it to me again? And usually that will fix the error. And then we just need to rerun ProcessNow, or if it's due to a power failure and the logger does not have that does not have the data to be back pulled, we can manually enter it, save without running ProcessNow, and then manually run ProcessNow. And if we go to the next slide, this is kind of just this is the knowledge article that you would find if you search for UDR errors in our customer base. It kind of explains to you, hey, here's how you fix this, and we can, you can either troubleshoot it yourself or you can contact support, and this is what we would look up to help you figure out what's going on with your ProcessNow sequence. All right, next slide. Okay, so another thing just to be wary of is we have in Data Lab, we have two save options. We have save without ProcessNow, and we have save with ProcessNow. They are distinguished between the blue and green floppy disk items you see in the top right corner there. Blue is save without, green is save with ProcessNow. Our advice is always to save without ProcessNow and then manually run the sequence you want to run in the way Alex described earlier. Saving with ProcessNow, you might not be sure what sequence is actually going to be run with that, and if there's no sequence defined, the min to hour is always the default to run on that. So we always just want to recommend to all of our customers that you want to save without ProcessNow and then manually run the ProcessNow sequence that you would like to run. All right, next slide. Okay, another common error we see is on the parameter daily record utility. This calculates the Part 75 auxiliary data such as percent monitor availability, bias factors, etc. And we usually see this at the beginning of the quarter. What usually causes this error is that your ProcessNow did not complete for the prior quarter. So we want to make sure that our ProcessNow is completed for the prior quarter, Jan 1 to March 31st. Make sure we get all of that done correctly. And then usually that will fix the error for the next quarter going forward. Some other things to keep in mind, we never want to run our ProcessNow over quarterly boundaries. We want to make sure we stick to the 3-month, 4-quarter dates kind of stuff. And we want to make sure that the ProcessNow has completed for the prior quarter before running it for the current quarter. And then another reminder is the PDR step cannot run over locked data as well. Okay. Another common error we see after server migrations is if you have a condition manager step in your ProcessNow sequence that calls out a script to be run, and the script was not moved over from the old server to the new server, your condition manager step will fail just because it doesn't know exactly what to be run. All you need to do for that is to copy the scripts from the old server over to the new server, make sure they're installed in the correct drive, and you should be good to go from there. All right. Next common error we want to go through is our CalCheck errors. This is for facilities that report under Part 60, Subpart A. It replaces the check OOC 60 step, and it uses the calibration error from CalLab when determining whether phases are out of control or just hitting the maintenance limit as well. So this is kind of what you would see in your ProcessNow history report. We can see it failed on the task number 3, part 60, subpart A. And this could be any task number. It's not specifically going to be number 3. That is all dependent on your ProcessNow sequence. What we want to do is investigate the cause of the error. Click on the red error link. It will probably tell you, the calibration on October 1st has an error in it. So what we want to do is go into our CalLab. We can edit the calibration records appropriately. If it was an aborted cal, we can select not to use it. If the calibration did fail, we can also change it to so it's actually reading an error. And if you ever see the -999 value in your CalLab, that is just our null value for our database. So either the calibration, as I said, either needs to be checked for not in use or changed to fail as well. And I believe that is all of the common errors we were going to cover. Again, here's our support team's contact information, either by phone, email. You can check in the customer community and set up your case that way, or you can use our live chat system and chat with an agent as well. And I believe that ends our presentation, and now we have time for questions.
It looks like we've got a couple questions coming in. I'll go ahead and read them off to you. Somebody is asking, where is the live agent link? Where would they find that in the customer community?
So the link would be in the community's website. It should be on the bottom right-hand corner, I believe.
Yeah, you have to log into customer community enable and to access it.
So min to hour, is that what it looks like?
Yes,
Min to
yes.
hour. So min to hour is usually used on your time online. And what it does, it rolls up the number of minutes up to the hour. Min to hour is also used on M-type channels, which is a different way of calculation versus part 75 math, which is the P-type channels.
Another question is there a way to see how long each ProcessNow task takes? Sometimes it takes a lot longer to process, and it'd be nice to see which tasks are taking longer.
Yeah, so on the ProcessNow history report, it's also going to show how long the task has been taking.
Alex, I think they're asking about the individual task, not just the entire sequence.
Oh,
itself.
each individual task?
Yeah, the duration on the ProcessNow history is for the entire ProcessNow sequence, whereas I believe the question is asking strictly about each task. And I believe that'll be needed for another customer feature request.
So yeah, I'm hearing that that has already been requested from dev, and we should be seeing that in the future.
Great. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, Sean is saying that they added the ProcessNow history report in 6.16.
6.16, great.
I guess upcoming.
Yep. Next version.
Great.
So,
Something to look forward to for sure.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, I do not see anything else. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can always email these guys and I know they'll get back to you.
So, thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks so much.
thank you.